that this is the last virtual General Assembly, and the next year we can meet in Vilnius. I really look forward to a face-to-face meeting. While last year our lives were still unsettled by the COVID pandemic, this year we're all shocked by the Russians' invasion of Ukraine. We were worried about our partners in Ukraine, and especially about our colleague Iryna, who just greeted all of us. Many of our international partners approached us asking how to help Ukrainian universities, scholars, and libraries. We are engaged with others to ensure that access to knowledge in Ukraine continues. While restrictions of COVID steadily being lifted over the last year, and while we are concerned about Ukraine, we have been able to make progress in implementing our 2021-2023 strategy. In this session, I'll share some highlights from progress made in the second year of the strategy. Our strategy has three main directions: advance a fair and sustainable transition from paywalled to open access content, support research, teaching and learning, and foster digital transformation of public library services. Our strategy to increase the availability of open access content includes encouraging authors to publish in open access and making articles available in open access repositories. We have agreements with 14 publishers for free or discounted article processing charges, APCs. Some of these are read and publish agreements. In 2022, we signed 2 new agreements with the Association for Computing Machinery, providing free read and publish for 25 countries, and Oxford University Press providing free APCs for 29 countries. Currently, agreements include open access publishing in more than 2,200 journals. We analyzed research outputs from our partner countries published in journals of 12 agreements that we had in place in 2021. According to the Web of Science data and the data received from publishers, the number of open access articles published by eligible authors with these publishers increased by 59% from 2020 to 2021. This is very encouraging, and we believe that this positive trend will continue. In 2021, authors who published in journals available through EIFL negotiated agreements saved over $1,350,000 in open access publishing cost. Making articles available in open access repository, I would like to highlight our work in Ghana, where we engaged in the national scale project. We are collaborating with our partner consortia, Garlight, to conduct an audit of institutional repositories of 15 consortium member institutions, and providing technical support that will enhance institutional repositories. Development of open access policies is also part of work in all participating institutions in the project. We also welcomed this year the adoption of the National Open Science Strategy in Latvia and the Ukrainian National Open Science Action Plan, which will manage depositing of articles in open access. There is also ongoing open repository and policy work with institutions in Botswana, Armenia, Congo, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Lesotho, Uganda, and Zambia. With regards to the second area of our strategy, support for research, teaching, and learning. We are involved in open science skills training, together with partners with Optima project. In Ukraine, we developed open science training handbooks for master and PhD students. Training activities are planned following the publishing of these handbooks. We will soon be launching the Train the Trainer boot camp for open science trainers from EIFL partner countries. Watch our website and follow our social media for the announcement of the boot camp. A couple of months ago, we launched a open climate campaign with Creative Commons and Spark. The Open Climate Campaign is a 4-year campaign funded by Arcadia to open research in climate science and biodiversity. Some of the goals of the campaign include working with the national governments, funders, and environmental organizations to create open access policies that will make it easier to share their climate content, data, and educational resources. Also, to identify important existing climate and biodiversity research publications not already in open access and help them move to an open access. Please visit the campaign website where you can find out more about the campaign and how to get involved. Our international advocacy efforts at the World International Property Organization, WIPO, on fair copyright laws resulted in agreement by the member states to undertake activities in 3 priority areas that are important for us, such as development of a toolkit on preservation by cultural heritage institutions. Stakeholder consultation already took place in September, and EIFL was consulted. Commission of a scoping study on research exceptions. This is a scoping study on the issue of exceptions for research in national copyright laws, including modern research methods such as text and data mining, and to organize an information session on cross-border uses of copyrighted works. That involves the sending and receiving of copyright protected material across multiple jurisdictions. During the session, experts and member states will discuss problems and possible solutions. These activities are part of the work plan on limitations and exceptions proposed by the Africa group at WIPO. The rest of activities in the work plan will be discussed at the next standing committee on copyright and related rights in 2023. Turning to the third area of our strategy, foster digital transformation of public library services. Last year, we started a 28-month project, Digital Skills and Inclusion Through Libraries in Uganda, funded by the Hackett program, which is implemented by the Belgian Development Agency, Annabelle. Uganda was one of the last countries to lift COVID restrictions, but in spite of restrictions, our 25 partner libraries that received training through the project did an incredible amount of training in their communities. Over 6,000 people learned basic and advanced digital and mobile literacy skills. Almost 900 people joined and completed various online courses through the learning circles organized by libraries. Quite a few of them are already using new knowledge to generate income for themselves and the families. Thank you very much for joining us today. Those were some of the highlights from 2022. And now I will ask our program managers to talk in more details about programs. First up is Teresa from Kupryte and Libraries Program.
Thank you very much, Rima. And if you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen, and then I will share my screen. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Really delighted to see you all virtually, but here all together in spirit as well, I think. So my name is Teresa Hackett. I am the Copyright and Libraries Program Manager at EIFL, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what our program has been doing this year. So to summarize what the EIFL-IP program does, well, we support national copyright law reform. We also advocate for global copyright rules to benefit libraries at the international level. We build capacity of librarians in copyright, and we develop resources on copyright issues related to libraries that are available in multiple languages. And we have on the EIFL website, in the resources section, if you check under copyright, you can see all of the resources that we have available to you. They're all freely available on open access. So in my short presentation today, I'm going to structure it according to these areas. So first of all, I'll talk about a project we're working on the right to research in international copyright law. Then I'll look at developments at the international level at WIPO, then some regional developments that are important in Africa, national copyright law reform, and then we'll finish with an update on the Marrakesh Treaty for persons with print disabilities. So we've been involved in a project that began in 2021 on the right to research in international copyright law, which is funded by the Arcadia Fund. The project advocates for a fair and a balanced copyright system. We advocate particularly at WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, on issues related to limitations and exceptions in copyright law. So that's provisions in the copyright law that allow activities like text and data mining that Rima mentioned, online education, digital preservation, and cross-border uses. That's really important in the global digital environment. The project has two parts. There's an academic part where copyright law specialists and academics research and write papers on these issues. And then there's a civil society coalition. And EIFL is involved in the civil society coalition side of things. The coalition is organized in 5 different regions: Africa, Asia and the Pacific, the European Union, Latin America and the Caribbean, and North America. EIFL is coordinating the region for Africa, and our objectives are to build a coalition of advocates in Africa who are active and influential, particularly at WIPO. Our public advocacy lead is Dr. Dick Kiowa from the University of South Carolina, originally from Uganda, as many of you I think know. And we have an advisory team of partners from 6 different countries in Africa who advise us and give us some assistance along the way. So in 2022, under the project, we awarded 3 grants. We awarded an advocacy grant to COBES in Senegal, that's our consortium partner, who are organizing an advocacy campaign on copyright law reform. So they're reviewing their law, they're building a coalition of local advocates, they're engaging with policymakers. Then in Kenya, we awarded a research grant to the Center for Intellectual Property and IT at Strathmore Law School. And they are looking at the intersection between copyright and tech policy, particularly looking at text and data mining and how from a domestic perspective, from a regional perspective, and then from an international perspective as well. In South Africa, we awarded a small grant to Black Stripe Foundation to organize a conference and a series of events in South Africa on the right to research. So that'll be a week of debates in Pretoria and Cape Town which we're planning in January 2023. It will be a regional event, so we will have representatives and delegates from all over Africa coming to South Africa to debate these issues. And I think it's quite exciting because it'll be the first face-to-face event regionally we will be able to organize in the last number of years due to the COVID restrictions. So it's looking to be a really exciting conference, and we'll be providing more details in pretty soon. We've also, under the project, launched recently a new website on access to knowledge. So this is bringing in more partners into the global access to knowledge movement. And there's the website is structured according to text and data mining, online education, and preservation by cultural heritage institutions. So I invite you to take a look at the website there and learn a little bit more about those issues and what our positions are. I think what the website also does is it provides evidence and research to support the advocacy that we are doing on these topics. Now, as Rima mentioned, she mentioned our work at WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization. So the Copyright Committee met in May for the first time in full negotiating mode, so back to normal business. And at that meeting, the African group presented a proposal for a work plan on limitations and exceptions. And as Rima mentioned, the member states agreed on 3 issues that would be brought forward for the next SCCR. So the Secretariat is preparing a toolkit on preservation by cultural heritage institutions, and there was a stakeholder consultation in Geneva in September with a range of stakeholders, including EIFL. And then there will be presentations by experts on cross-border issues and a scoping study on exceptions for research. And these activities will be presented at the next session of the SCCR in March 2023. And we're grateful to the leadership of the African group who made this proposal and was successful in getting these activities agreed. I'll also mention briefly another outcome from WIPO that was also kind of brokered by the African group in a rather surprise development, which is that at the WIPO assemblies that took place in July, the member states agreed to convene 2 diplomatic conferences in 2024. Now, a diplomatic conference is an event where member states agree to the text of a new treaty. So it's like the final negotiating stage when a treaty is being developed. Now, the treaties are in 2 different areas. One is on design law, which is the protection of industrial designs and products. The other one is on genetic resources and traditional knowledge associated with those genetic resources. So while these topics are not copyright issues, we think that the fact that the diplomatic conferences will be convened may have an impact on our work next year, because the delegates will be very busy preparing for these diplomatic conferences on these 2 issues. So it was a development, I think, that took almost everybody by surprise. And many of these, both of these treaties had been were being negotiated for many years. And so there was a lot of positivity and optimism that it had been agreed to go forward with the diplomatic conferences on these 2 topics. The other area where there have been some interesting and important developments is in Africa. So the African Continental Free Trade Area has come into effect, and just in last week, the first shipments of tea from Kenya to Ghana took place under the new Free Trade Area Agreement. And it's a really, I think, exciting and ambitious agreement. So there's currently 43 parties to the Free Trade Area Agreement, which will make it one of the largest free trade areas in the world. There is expectations that 30 million people could be potentially lifted out of extreme poverty. It will boost the income of the continent by 7%. And a number of what they call regional value chains have been identified, including cultural and creative industries. And at the moment, the IP protocol is currently being negotiated. And the objectives to this IP protocol, protocol on intellectual property, are to support intra-African trade, to promote African innovation and creativity, establish common positions on IP rights in Africa. And so this will, when the protocol is agreed, it will influence the direction of policy on intellectual property, including copyright, in Africa and internationally as WIPO. And the IP protocol will likely take a principles-based approach initially, and then there will be an annex of some description that will include some of the more details for that. So that's something that we will be following and watching out for, because I think it's important and potentially very, very exciting for the work that we're doing. Now, looking at national copyright law reform, we've been involved in 4 countries that have been undergoing reforms. In Nigeria, the copyright bill was adopted in July by the Senate and the National Assembly. The bill includes some positive limitations and exceptions, so we welcome that. And the status of the bill is that it's awaiting the signature by the president, when then it will be signed into law. In South Africa, we responded to a public consultation by the Parliament's Committee on Trade and Industry. The revised copyright bill then was adopted in June 2022 by the Parliament, and we're happy to say that the limitations and exceptions in the bill are largely intact. So there had been some changes to the previous version, but the version that was revised is largely as it was before, with some additional conditions relating to fair practice, which is absolutely fine. So the status of that bill now is that it's going to the National Council of Provinces, who are now examining the bill and discussing the bill. So we'll be following that process as well. I wanted to mention an important case that Blind South Africa recently won in South Africa, where they took a case against the Copyright Act, which went all the way to the Constitutional Court, which in the end declared parts of the Copyright Act unconstitutional. So that's the parts of the Copyright Act relating to access to accessible materials by blind and visually impaired material. So I think that's an important case that could have, that could be influential in other parts of Africa and indeed the rest of the world. In Namibia, we participated in the National Conference on the Copyright Bill towards the end of last year. We followed up with written comments in 5 different areas that are important to us, like education, libraries, fair use, fair dealing, people with disabilities, and the term of protection. And we are currently waiting for a new draft version of the text to be produced. And then finally, in Kosovo, most recently, just in October this year, we responded to a public consultation on the new draft law on copyright and related rights with our partner in Kosovo, AELK. We submitted written comments in 3 areas: blind and visually impaired people, libraries, and the so-called 3-step test that sets conditions on the use of exceptions. And so we're awaiting the results of the consultation, and we'll be following up together with our partners in Kosovo. And then finally, the Marrakesh Treaty for Persons with Print Disabilities, which still remains WIPO's fastest moving and most popular treaty. By now, there are 116 countries have joined the treaty. 24 of those countries, so that's 20%, were supported by EIFL, or EIFL supported 20% of the countries. Since the last GA, I'm happy to say that Armenia has joined the Marrakesh Treaty, and there are proposals to amend the copyright law to implement the Marrakesh Treaty. In Kenya, we published a Getting Started Guide to Using the Treaty, which is adapted for Kenyan copyright law. And then we published an information sheet for EU libraries in the European Union that are supporting Ukrainian refugees with print disabilities. So there's, since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, more than 6 million people have left Ukraine, and many of them have come to the European Union for temporary protection. Many libraries are providing resources and seeking to provide resources in Ukrainian, particularly for children who are attending schools and taking part. So we were asked by some European libraries to provide information or to help them work out how they can provide assistance to those children who are arriving into their countries. So we've published an information sheet with advice on the situation and how to do that. And I think what's really helpful is that the Marrakesh Treaty has been really helpful in this regard. And the Marrakesh Treaty was implemented just 4 short years ago by the European Union, and now it's really proving to be a very helpful tool for supporting Ukrainians with print disabilities. And then finally on the Marrakesh Treaty, looking back at the Marrakesh Treaty, myself and Justus Drayling from Communia have written a chapter on success for peoples with print disabilities, Marrakesh Treaty, which is a chapter in a new book published by EIFL on navigating copyright for libraries. The book is available online in open access, and it's got chapters on many different copyright issues. So I invite you to take a look at that. If you can, buy a copy for your library, because I think it's a really great resource which sets out the kind of the theory of copyright, but also talks about current issues on what's happening, including the Marrakesh Treaty. And then looking forward to next year, well, the Marrakesh Treaty will be 10 years next year, so perhaps we'll have some celebrations to mark that important occasion. So that's the end of my short presentation, and I invite comments or questions if anyone would like to ask, or whether people have questions at the end. So Rima, I'll hand back to you to decide. Thank you.
Only say thanks. So I guess now it's over to Lorraine.
Hello, everybody. It's Lorraine here. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm really delighted to be here today because although I started working at EIFL in January, this is the first opportunity to talk to so many of you, even though it is virtual. And as I say, I took over from a Beard, who many of you will know, back in January. So I'm going to give you a little overview of the work that we've been doing over over this year and what we're looking forward to coming up. Sorry,
do you mind clicking the presentation?
Yes, thank you, Rina. I forgot to do that. Sorry, so let's go on. So I think, as Rima said, a very important, very important part of the strategy for EIFL is this transition from paywalled to open access content. And to support that, we are looking where we can to reach agreements with publishers that will really enable both access but also publishing open access for affiliated authors in EIFL countries. So one of the first things that I was involved in when I began in January was working to complete an agreement started by Roma with the Association for Computing Machinery. And this is a really, really amazing opportunity because it provides free access and free open access publishing for 25 countries, and that's across 70 journals and the Association for Computing Machinery's conference proceedings. Now, we already had, as most of you will be aware, an agreement with Oxford University Press for access. But this year we reached a new agreement which additionally provides waived APCs in 98 fully open access journals for authors from 29 countries. But as much as we are working on this transition to open access, of course, renewing our agreements for access is also very important. So you can see here the list of publishers that we are working with this year to renew existing agreements. Many of those agreements combine both access and a publishing element. So you can see Cambridge University Press, Edward Elgar, Oxford University Press, Sage Premier, are all publishers where we have an element of access, but also an element of open access publishing. And those elements vary quite a lot. Sometimes it's waivers on APCs, but there are other options for countries too very often. Some of the renewals we're working on are read only. So for example, Hein is a very important agreement we have, which we've just completed, which is a read only one. And a very popular agreement, many of you I know take the JSTOR journal agreement, and we're working to renew that for 2023, but also adding a new element to that for the JSTOR backlist of ebooks. So you'll hear more about that shortly as we reach agreement with them. So one of the very important things that we are doing is not just renewing these agreements, but really analysing them and looking to see what value they bring, and at every time to evaluate if we still want to carry on with them. So this year we looked at the 2021 usage statistics. Most of the publishers, I'm pleased to say, provide counter usage statistics. And we also looked at the savings from those agreements. So in 2021, over 8.4 million full text articles and book chapters were downloaded in 38 EIFL countries. So a huge amount of content access there. And we calculate that these agreements saved approximately 525 million in subscription fees. So, and I would just add, that figure is just on the access, the reading element of those agreements. There were additional savings, which Rima mentioned, on APCs as well. And we calculate on the subscription fees, the average discount on the list price is 98%. When we compiled these statistics, we shared them with all the licensing coordinators in the EIFL countries, and they're also available on the secure area of the website. So if anyone hasn't seen the statistics for their country. You can log in and get them there. And of course, if you have any difficulty, please let me know. Rima mentioned the 2021 agreements that have an open access element. We now have 14 agreements with open access elements. And you can see the list of the publishers here. And just as we evaluate the agreements for read access, we're also working very hard to evaluate these open access agreements and to really make sure that they're doing what we hope, and that is boosting open access. And what we found is that they are. So we looked at all the 2021 agreements that were in place and the number of articles published by authors in EIFL countries as a result. And I think we can say that these waived or discounted APCs are one of the drivers of the global growth we are seeing in open access. So of the 12 agreements in 2021, they contributed to a 59% increase in open access publishing from 2020 to 2021. So they are really making a difference. And you'll see here this graph which shows the open access outputs by publisher. And if you want more about this, I did a blog a while ago, which is on the EIFL website. And in that I go into some more detail. I would just add that some of these agreements are relatively new. So in 2020 to 2021, we didn't see so much open access with them, but hopefully next year, when we do this analysis again, we will see that those agreements are also contributing. When we looked at those statistics, we saw that the total number of articles published under the agreements in 2021, 94% of outputs were in fully open access journals or gold journals, and 6% were in hybrid journals. Now, where possible, when we are negotiating with the publishers, we aim to ensure that authors can publish in both fully open access and hybrid journals. It's not always possible, but that is our objective. And one of the other things we do when we are negotiating the agreements with the publishers is to ask them to ensure that their systems automatically recognize our authors, so that when our authors submit their articles to those journals, they don't have to ask for the waiver or the discount that we have negotiated. The publisher automatically recognizes that they are entitled to that waiver or discount, and they receive it without having to do any other actions. And that is very important, and having to ask for waivers or discounts that you're entitled to can be a barrier to open access. So we really want to avoid that. And we also have a set of principles. Again, they're available from the EIFL website, and you can pick up the link from the slides afterwards, that we use when we're negotiating open access agreements with publishers. Now, it's all very well for us to negotiate these agreements with publishers for waivers, for discounts on APCs. But of course, it's the authors that need to be aware of them so that they can take advantage of them and that they have that information when they're deciding which journals they're going to submit their work to. So to make it easier for authors to know where they can publish for free or with highly discounted rates for APCs, we promote country-specific lists to researchers from eligible countries to raise their awareness about these opportunities. And the evidence is that researchers are taking notice. And since the last GA, there were more than 4,200 downloads of the country-specific journal lists that we make available from the website. And we will be monitoring all these statistics next year to see if there has been an increase in open access publications in those countries in 2022. I think one of the very important things about this transition from paywall to open access is that it takes collaboration. And that's really key to the success of open access. So we are part of the ESAC community of practice, and we share dates of the meetings and webinars. And if you haven't attended any of these events, I really recommend that you take a look and think about joining, because they really share really helpful best practice in communicating open access agreements, best practice in negotiating, and so on. So it is a really important forum where we can share knowledge and tips, if you like, to work towards this transition. ESAC has a registry of transformative agreements, so that when we negotiate, and by transformative agreement, we mean an agreement that has a read and publishing element. And when we negotiate one of those agreements, we make sure that it's in the ESAC registry. And that really also helps to make the whole scholarly publishing environment much more transparent. Other countries, other consortia can see what we have negotiated with those publishers. And I'm pleased to say that not only do we put our EIFL agreements in the ESAC registry, the transformative agreements from several EIFL countries are also in there. So it's available on the website, on the web, it's just open if you want to have a look, and you can see there the license agreements that we have negotiated, and indeed other consortia around the world. Another collaboration that we're quite excited about this year is our collaboration with the OA switchboard. I was talking earlier about collecting all this data, looking at how authors have taken advantage of these agreements, published with waivers, published with discounted APCs, and getting that data is really quite a challenge, and making sure that it is accurate and so on. So the OA switchboard is a new initiative which is providing automated real-time alerts about open access publications of affiliated authors. And our agreement with the OA switchboard will help us to monitor the open access publications that where we've negotiated agreements, and to report progress to all the stakeholders. We are also taking part in a session run by the ISMTE, that's the International Society of Managing and Technical Editors, in November, about equity in open access. And I'm really delighted that we've been invited to participate in that. And we will be talking very broadly with stakeholders around the world in that conference about how we make open access more equitable. Of course, my focus from the licensing perspective is usually on discounted APCs, waived APCs, read and publish agreements, those things that enable ideally free or cheaper open access publishers. But not all authors can publish open access because, of course, many journals don't have an EIFL agreement, and they require the payment of an article processing charge, an APC. And payment of those APCs are a real barrier to open access. Those fees are often very, very high, and many authors just don't have funding to pay for them. But authors can make their author accepted manuscript, often called an AAM, openly accessible through their repository. And the author accepted manuscript is the version of their article that has been accepted by a journal after peer review, but before the publisher does the typography and the styling and so on. But it's robust in as much as it has been through the peer review process, although it may not look quite as elegant as the version that appears on the publisher's website. So that's the version that authors can make available in their repository. And together with the EIFL Open Access Programme, we have developed a guide for authors that explains how to do that. And there is also a webinar recording with an overview of EIFL partner publishers' self-archiving policies, quite difficult to say, and workflows for populating institutional repositories with author-accepted manuscripts. And you can find both the webinar and the guide available on the EIFL resource page on the website, and the link is there. So yeah, a really useful guide, I think, and something that you could download and share with authors in your institutions. So I think that is everything from me. And as I say, it's been really wonderful to meet you all virtually for the first time.
Thanks a lot, Lorraine. There is a comment from Drake in the Q&A. I'll read it to you. Dear Lorraine, thank you for the wonderful work. Uganda is looking forward to access to CUP. Also further discussions about an EIFL dashboard to improve access to the necessary information from our institutions to publishers.
Great. I don't think there's an actual question there, is there?
Yeah, it's just a comment.
Just a comment. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Drake. And yeah, really, really great to have that comment. Thank you.
Now a couple of updates from EIFL Open Access Program. And it's really easy to speak after Lorraine because she already covered how important it is to use repositories to enable open access to publications which are published in subscription-based journals. So that's an area where we're working together with Lorraine. And we also have specific clauses in some of the agreements. For example, EIFL's agreement with Taylor and Francis allows depositing publisher PDFs after an embargo period, and that's what we are promoting among our members. We also want to explore direct content depositing from publishers into repositories, and this new agreement, which was already mentioned today with ICM, includes this automatic depositing. So we will be happy to collaborate with your repositories to enable this automatic posting of articles. Rights retention is another area which is really high on our agenda, because we believe that if authors retain enough rights to provide open access to their also accepted manuscripts, that would be a big win for open access. And as always, we keep working on institutional and national open access policies that enable depositing of articles in repositories via specific policy clauses mandating that. So for the rights retention, we had a webinar earlier this year, and Coalition has released a set of easy to digest materials, what rights retention is. They have a video, they have a quiz, they have sample letters for publishers. They also have some resources for librarians and research administrators. So that's a good example of reusable materials, and rights retention is now part of European legislation. So it's a little bit easier to promote it in Europe. And I hope it will also be included in policies in other parts of the world. And we would really like to hear from you. How do you think your repositories contribute to this goal that we have in EIFL strategy, fair and sustainable transition from paywalled to open access content? Under the area of supporting research, teaching, and learning, we offer help with open science and open research skills building and training. And Rima already mentioned that in the second half of January, we'll have an EIFL Open Science Train the Trainer bootcamp. So please watch the space. We'll be inviting you to apply, and we hope it will be an exciting experience. Unfortunately, virtual as well, but something to look forward. And EIFL is a part of European Commission funded project EOSC Future. EOSC stands for the European Open Science Cloud, and we're involved in training activities there. And in November, there will be a Train the Trainer course on understanding and using European Open Science Cloud, virtual and free. Anyone could join and is invited to join if you're interested. And then EIFL is a member of Open Air, and earlier this year we helped Open Air to run the first Open Science Train the Trainer bootcamp that some of you attended, and there will be a second Open Science Train the Trainer bootcamp in December. And if you're interested, please apply. So registration deadline for these post trainings is end of October, so the 1st of October. We'll also keep supporting platforms for open access journals, publishing open access repositories and for publications and data. And research data management is still a new area for many of our partner libraries. So we would be happy to support you in this journey of introducing research data management services. And now when we live in open science and open research era, we advocate for not only open access, but broader open science policies on the institutional and national level that include data sharing and other elements of open science. And huge congratulations to our partners from Virtual University in Côte d'Ivoire, and also from our partners in Congo DRC, UPLG Gomar, that introduced their first open science policies. In September, EIFL joined a European project called DIAMAS, which stands for Developing Institutional Open Access Publishing Models to Advance Scholarly Communication. And it's about supporting open access journal publishing that doesn't use article processing charges as a business model. Open access publishing that is free for authors and of course free for readers to read, and we will be collaborating with 23 partners in capacity building and advocacy activities in Europe. And we believe that what we will do will also have an impact on the global level. And remember that last year at EIFL General Assembly, we announced small grants to consortia that would like to advance open science activities in their countries, and that's been an excellent journey. So we are supporting open access publishing projects in Ethiopia, Georgia, Ghana, Kenya, and Lesotho, and we're also supporting repository enhancements and policy development projects in Armenia, Congo DRC, Ghana, Lesotho, and Uganda. And tomorrow we have a session for EIFL open access country coordinators with our grantees to share experiences and present how these projects helped to advance open access and open science, and also how they were instrumental for national consortia activities. Please join that session tomorrow if you are an open access country coordinator, or if you are an EIFL country coordinator. We also ran a series of webinars for open access journal editors and publishers in Africa, in collaboration with African Journals Online, Academy of Sciences of South Africa, Director of Open Access Journals, Lipsens, and University of Cape Town. And slides and recordings are available, and over 1,000 journal editors and publishers attended those webinars. We are also supporting Ukrainian journal editors and publishers. We are part of a large initiative which is called SOAS, Supporting Ukrainian Editorial Staff. And it's a collaboration between a number of organizations across Europe to provide some funding to journal editors and also to build capacities. We help to host some of the webinars. That's also a very rewarding experience. For those of you who are working with repositories and who use DSpace, you know that there is a new version of DSpace, DSpace 7 released, and we provide support materials to repository managers, because DSpace 7 is quite different from previous versions of DSpace. So we're part of international teams that is writing documentation for repository managers, how to use DSpace 7, and we also hosted a webinar with Square Technologies explaining what DSpace 7 is and how to upgrade to this version of DSpace. So you will hear more from us. And the reason we're doing that is because DSpace announced that unfortunately previous versions of DSpace 5 and 6 won't be supported any longer next year. And then another successful development on the collaborations level, SCORS, an initiative that helps to sustain open science infrastructures by crowdfunding those infrastructures by libraries and funders. It's getting stronger and stronger. As you can see, it managed to raise almost 5 million to support 8 infrastructures that were selected for funding, and a number of libraries and funders contributed to that. So that's a great example how open science community supports open science infrastructures, public open science infrastructures. Rima mentioned a new project that we have just started with Creative Commons and Spark, which we call Open Climate Campaign. And we would really like to work with you to engage with your governments about introducing open access and open science policies. And we're using open climate and climate change as just one example why such a policy is needed. But of course, ideally, we would like to have broad national open access and open science policy, not only a policy covering climate and biodiversity research. And we would also like to support environmental organizations. And also, I'm sure in your universities, you have climate research departments, and you have researchers working in this area. So we would like to connect with them. We would like to help them practice open access. And if they're part of a broader organization, and even a university could be considered such an organization, we would like to support those organizations in adopting open access and open science policies, and also sharing important climate and biodiversity research. And next week, we will all be celebrating Open Access Week, and its theme is Open for Climate Justice. So that's another opportunity to engage in those debates how openness helps to solve all burning issues that we are facing. Thank you so much, and I'll be happy to answer your questions after Ramune's presentation. So over to you, Ramune.
Thank you, Iryna. I'll share my screen. Hello to everyone. Good morning and afternoon. My name is Ramune Petuchovaite, and I am EIFL Public Library Innovation Manager. Today, I will give an update on the program's activities and achievements in 2022. I know that there are some people new in EIFL network, so I just want to remind them that for about 5 years, EIFL Public Library Innovation Program focus has been to strengthen and support continuous transformation of public library services in Africa through different activities and initiatives. And in EIFL 2021-2023 strategy, our main aim is to foster digital transformation of public libraries, library services to advance community development. So we have been doing this, we have been doing through different activities, and first of all, our objective is to build capacity of public library system in Africa so that they can use technology in more effective ways and address community needs through innovative and relevant services for communities. We also advocate with governments and international stakeholders for improved digital infrastructure for public libraries, because it builds a foundation for ICT-based services in public libraries. And I think COVID-19 pandemics have shown that infrastructure is still not sufficient so that libraries can reach out to their communities online. We also empower public library innovators, individual persons, through the initiative for Young African Library Innovators, and also try to advance public library innovation through recognition of creativity and forward-looking services through EIFL Public Library Innovation Awards. So now I will give a little bit more detailed overview of each of those objectives, so what we have done in 2022. Rima has already mentioned the major project that we are implementing since January 2021 in Uganda. And it's implemented by 4 partners. EIFL is coordinator of this project, and then we have 2 partners, key partners in Uganda, National Library of Uganda and Mandela Foundation, NGO based in Mukono, and also Peer-to-Peer University, another NGO based in US. We are working in this project with 25 public and community libraries across Uganda to enable youth and women to participate in digital society and benefit from new opportunities. Main activities that this project include train of trainers for public librarians to run digital skills training for communities. Also, obviously, digital skills training programs in libraries for youth and women. outreach activities and online and learning circles in libraries for online learners small groups of online learners who are taking the same course so that they can proceed supporting each other. As Rima already mentioned, over less than 2 years, even with some restrictions because of COVID-19 disruption in Uganda, we have reached almost 7,000 people in Uganda, help them to advance their digital skills. Some of them just got them for the first time, and I'm proud to share with you Impact Stories map. You can find it on EIFL website, following the link that I included in this slide, that shows how people benefit from digital skills and can improve their lives and can open new opportunities for their families and so on. And this project really shows that public access in public libraries concept works also effectively works in least developed countries, not only in countries that have more resources and so on. So another activity under this initiative to build capacity of public library system is also continuous. In 2021, under restrictions of COVID-19 pandemic, so we have started virtual tea breaks for our network of public librarians trainers who have taken part in continuous professional development trainers activities of EIFL, and we did those virtual trainers breaks to keep them engaged and sharing good practices. Since the launch of this activity in June 2021, we have already had 10 virtual tea breaks on very different themes that are relevant for public librarians, for example, online training resources for librarians. We had guest speaker from Tactical Tech, NGO that creates online resources for training people on privacy issues and fighting misinformation. So there was digital inquiry resources, then micro-learning, misinformation. We just, this week on Tuesday, we had played a game together with our partner and good friend, Chris Covert from Washington University, investigating misinformation. It's a game online game that they created by request of librarians so that people would learn about information, recognizing misinformation, and learning how to fight it through more creative ways. And it was really, really very interesting. So I am also very proud to introduce to you our new EIFL-PLIP Small Bites series. It's the newest, actually, outcome of EIFL Public Library Innovation Program team's expertise in training public librarians, but also technical expertise. Based on our curriculum that we use to build capacity of public librarians, we are doing small mini video lessons to help public librarians either learn by themselves or library trainers who are training other librarians to use those interactive videos as support material. So, so far we have created 3 mini lessons They are all available in our EIFL resources page. Just look under Public Library Innovation subject. So those lessons are managing workshop expectations, how to evaluate libraries training program and outcomes of library programs and services. Though our focus audience is public librarians, but definitely those subjects and those lessons are relevant for other types of libraries. So I encourage you to search for them and watch. It will take only like 15 minutes of your time. And we are going to do more of those. So look forward for that. As I mentioned, we also advocate with our national partners in Africa for improved digital infrastructure in public libraries. And I'm glad to share some successes of our partners in Uganda. We just learned that Uganda Communication Commission provided 10 libraries with the computers, new printer, and some more accessories to strengthen their public access infrastructure so that they can do a better job in training communities. We also continue to advocate for better public access infrastructure in public libraries and their roles in digital inclusion at international level through World Summit of Information Society run by ITU or Internet Governance Forum platform run by or started by UN. So this year, Internet Governance Forum will be again a hybrid, will take place online and live in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So I would encourage Ethiopian librarians to join this event at the end of November, beginning of December, so that libraries' voice about their role in equipping people with digital skills, but also giving access to resources for research studies and community development will be recognized and heard across different stakeholders there. And also for others, join the Internet Governance Forum online because it's easy and definitely you will find a lot of relevant sessions to participate and contribute. Also with EIFL, EIFL proposed to have a special session there for dynamic coalition for public access in libraries, and this session will be about user-centered internet governance and feature libraries' contribution and how libraries can help governments to hear from communities, but also collaborate with communities about the development of online services and so on. So this session will be on December 2nd, 2022, and will start at 8:15 a.m. UTC. Please join. And then also you can learn a lot about about public access in libraries through different publications of Dynamic Coalition for Public Access in Libraries. And very soon we will have finalized version of a report on impacts of public access to computers and internet in libraries published. The working version was out at the end of the last year. So this study provides an overview of most recent studies about impact of public access in libraries from different countries, but also it is the second chapter focuses on methodologies, how to study, how to research, and how to evaluate the impacts of public access in libraries. And I think this is this chapter would be helpful for those who wants to start new studies and lack a capacity of you know, building methodologies that work. So I'm really encourage you to browse through those resources. And then I'm also glad this year we actually, for the first time after pandemic started, we had 2 public library innovators traveling from Africa to Romania for EIFL program. They have really inspiring program, library visit program in Romania. We visited 5 public libraries serving urban and also rural communities. And this one thing they noticed first of all was that actually libraries across continents has a lot of similarities. More about this program you can learn or inspiration that Peter Balaba and Kaltuma Sama have got from Romania. You can learn in the blog that was published in August on our website. We also continue our Public Library Innovation Award. In January this year, we announced 3 new winners of the 15 EIFL Public Library Innovation Award that was focused on supporting education recovery during COVID-19. 3 winners. Nakuru Public Library in Kenya collaborated with university to train teachers how to conduct online classes while schools were closed. Nakaseke Public Library in Uganda used the internet and radio station to support children education during the world's longest COVID-19 lockdown in Uganda. And then Wheels of Wisdom in Bangladesh, a mobile library project run by Grow Your Reader Foundation, used 3-wheeled van with books and the internet connection to help disadvantaged children continue their learning right in the streets while schools were closed. Also in September this year, we have published a new call for applications, the 16th EIFL Public Library Innovation Award. And this year, this award is supported by Lego Foundation. And the theme of the award is enabling learning through play. I know Rima have shared with you via email the call, so I just encourage you to remind your colleagues in public and community libraries about this opportunity to get international recognition of their creativity and hard work supporting children learning through playful activities. With the support of Lego Foundation, we actually will be able to add really very appealing thing to our usual award package, which is 1,500 US dollars prize, trophy, nice trophy and certificate. So those who will win this award will be able to attend next library conference 2023 in Aarhus, Denmark, and will see the most inspiring and most innovative public library probably in Europe, DOC 1. So something to look forward. And in the future, we are, of course, continuing work on building capacity of library system in Africa, support advocacy for better connectivity, inspire public library service innovation through African Library Innovators Initiative and also EIFL Award. We will also be exploring new opportunities for partnership and projects and consortia in Africa. If you hear about government investment in the public access infrastructure in public libraries, please let us know, and we will be happy to explore possibilities to extend our capacity building program for public librarians so they can use this infrastructure more effectively. Thank you very much, and I'm ready for your questions or comments.
Thanks a lot, Ramune, and thanks a lot, dear colleagues, for sending your questions. We'll be answering them shortly, and actually most of them, all of them are actually for Lorraine. But before doing that, I would like to flag one more important event. Colleague Colleen, who is on the EIFL Management Board, reminded us about a very important workshop that we are co-organizing in November. So it's called Global Equity in Open Access Publishing, and this will be a series of workshops on practical mechanisms and action plans to remove barriers for readers and authors. The first edition will be collecting viewpoints from Africa and Europe, and we want to address some questions that you see on the screen. How can discounts and waiver programs be adjusted to enable more equitable access to open access publishing for authors as a short-term strategy? What actions could foster open access publishing fees that are differentiated globally? What can funders, ministries, research administrators do to understand just how much money they are directing collectively in scholarly publishing? How can the global community assess the distribution of such funds and their impact, particularly for researchers in different resource contexts? And this will be an online workshop, free on Zoom, and it will be on November 21st, 22nd, for a couple of hours. And registration already closed, but Colleen has kindly said that if you didn't manage to register on time, you can still get in touch and register for this workshop. And we believe that it will be very important for the EIFL network to be there. And thanks a lot to those who already registered. So let me drop a link in a chat now to this workshop page, and you'll see a link how to reach out to Colleen and her colleagues